The stalemate in Ukraine continues. Russia, which was expected to ramp up its pressure on Ukraine's defenses, is instead struggling right now. Its territorial gains have become minimal, and its army is experiencing logistical problems, particularly in southern Ukraine, as Ukraine has been gaining an advantage in mid-range strike capacity. Even its ability to celebrate the most sacred holiday of Russian statehood, the 9th of May Victory Day, now depends on the goodwill of the Ukrainians. Let's look at these and other important updates from the war in Ukraine in May in this video. This video is sponsored by you. Unfortunately, the YouTube environment is not great right now, with the algorithm being friendlier to drama and react channels and YouTube being permissive of AI slop. We don't do drama and we don't do AI, but thanks to our members and patrons, our channel continues to make 3 public videos per week, with the team intact and going strong. In recognition of their generosity and contributions, members and patrons receive 2 additional exclusive videos each week, and access many other perks. Join them to watch more than 250 exclusive videos covering every era of history. Join them by scanning the QR code on your screen, via the links in the description or pinned comment, or by pressing the join button under the video. The battlefield in Ukraine has been barely moving for months now. Both sides are conducting localized assaults to improve their tactical situation, but the drone domination of the battlefield makes any major offensives very risky. Very often, small assault groups are detected and destroyed even before reaching the front line. Infiltration groups may reach their targets undetected, and even plant their flags to simulate control over a small village. But in practice they are too small to be effective on their own, and are often destroyed soon after detection. As a result, all the advances are small, and the media coverage about the war is dominated by news of long-range strikes. In May, Ukraine improved its tactical situation on the Zaporizhia front by pushing the Russians further away from the Kinska River and liberating some ground in Stepnahirsk. They have also improved their positions in Melitokmachka, a minor locale which has become a meme due to Russia's inability to capture it, despite the Russian Ministry of Defense and military bloggers declaring advances in it for more than 3 years now. The Ukrainians have also stabilized the situation at the junction of Dnipropetrovsk, Donetsk and Zaporizhia oblasts. Earlier, after the capture of Hulia Pola by Russia, the situation looked threatening for Ukraine, but they have since been able to recapture some land in localized counterattacks. However, a problematic situation may be arising for the Ukrainian army in Kostiantynivka. In May, Russian infiltration groups were detected in the central part of the town, after reaching it via the flanks. Once again, the advance of infiltration groups does not necessarily mean the capture of an area, as we have seen many times already since the start of 2025. So far, the main Russian offensive force in the area has not been able to advance beyond the H20 and TO504 highways. But if the Russian infiltration groups are followed up by the main force, Kostiantynivka will face a real threat of encirclement. The westward advance of the Russian army since the capture of the heavily fortified town of Siversk is another problem facing the Ukrainian army right now. Very slowly but surely, they are grinding their way towards Slovyansk from the southeast. Ukraine's situation here is mitigated to a certain extent by Russia's failure to capture Liman thus far, and drive on Slovyansk from a northeastern axis as well. The Ukrainians have also reportedly completely cleared Kupiansk of the Russian infiltrators. Although the Russian Ministry of Defense has officially declared Kupiansk and even some towns to the west as captured, there is absolutely zero evidence that this is true. In our previous video, we discussed how Ukraine has been getting an edge in the all-important drone race in this war. In May, we observed more evidence of this, particularly in the south. Ukraine's mid-range strikes, particularly on the M14 highway connecting Russia to Crimea and Kherson oblasts, have been a major problem for Russia's logistics. Ukrainian drones are regularly striking Russia's vehicles, transporting not only military supplies, but also fuel and civilian goods. The head of Russia's occupation administration in Kherson, Vladimir Saldo, signed a decree restricting the movement of freight vehicles through this highway on May 21st, while allowing military transportation. This means that now only vehicles carrying military supplies will be allowed to travel on the M14 highway, which will make the life of Ukrainian drone operators even easier. Fuel shortages in Crimea are already being reported. Ukraine's mid-range strike capabilities have surpassed Russia's at this point, and the difference may grow, as Ukraine has announced the deployment of domestically produced glide bombs with a range of dozens of kilometers and with a 250-kilogram warhead. Meanwhile, Belarus's presence in the Ukraine-related media space continues to grow. In 2023, Russia deployed its nuclear weapons and nuclear-capable missile systems to Belarus. On May 21st, Russia and Belarus conducted joint nuclear exercises. On May 26th, the Secretary of the Belarusian Security Council, Alexander Wolfowitz, claimed that they have observed 116 attempts by Ukrainian drones to enter the airspace of Belarus. Some have interpreted this statement as Belarus developing a casus belli against Ukraine. There have also been reports of the deployment of additional Russian forces to the Belarus-Ukraine border areas. However, at this point, it is difficult to see a full-scale joint Russo-Belarusian offensive unfolding in North Ukraine and Kyiv. According to the advisor to the Ukrainian Minister of Defense, Serhiy Flash-Beskresnov, Ukraine has sufficient fortifications and manpower to repel any offensive coming from the north. An invasion in the format of 2022 from Belarus will not happen again. Any column of vehicles would not last for even a few hours. Having said that, he acknowledged that further build-up in Belarus may cause Ukraine to divert more troops to the north, while Russia may also expand the usage of Belarus as a launch pad for missiles and drones against Ukraine. All in all, Russia has been struggling to achieve anything meaningful since the turn of the year. Since the 2023 mobilization, Russia has enjoyed a solid manpower advantage over the Ukrainians in this war, which has been one of the main drivers of its gains since then. But they may be slowly losing it because Russia's contract recruitment rates have been steadily dropping this year. After peaking at around 45,000 recruits in several months of 2024 and 2025, the Russian army has seen a decrease of some 20% in monthly recruitment. Why? Well, first of all, Russia has lost a lot of those who came to Ukraine in hopes of easy money. Mediazona estimates at least 352,000 dead and missing Russian soldiers based on the open-source data and statistics of the National Probate Registry. Simply put, a significant portion of the human reserve of Russians who believe that their chances of earning a lot of money from the war exceed their chances of being killed in Ukraine are already in Ukraine, with many of them killed. This is not an infinite resource, and Russia has started to feel it. Second, despite all the censorship and media restrictions imposed by the Russian government, Russians are aware of the staggering losses suffered by their side, and signing up to fight in Ukraine does not look as enticing as before to many people. And the Russian government understands it and sees two alternatives here. Another round of compulsory mobilization is the most straightforward method to recruit as many men as necessary into the army, but it carries a significant political risk for Putin, which is why the Kremlin has so far avoided it after 2023. The second option is to offer more lucrative terms to potential recruits. The Russian government is opting for this path at this moment. For instance, on May 25th, Putin signed a decree granting debt relief of up to 10 million rubles for new recruits and their spouses. There are reports that provincial Russian governments are offering higher one-time payments to new recruits. So far, this has not enabled the Russian army to return to the earlier peak recruitment rates. If this continues, Putin may not have any other choice but to order mobilization. Until then, Ukraine may take advantage of the new situation. The commander of Ukraine's 3rd Army Corps, Brigadier General Andriy Beletsky, argued in his interview that the next 6 to 9 months will be a turning point in this war. He believes that the Russians are exhausted after more than 4 years of high-intensity warfare and are struggling due to manpower and field commander shortages. Beletsky sees this as an opportunity to liberate some territory and then negotiate with Russia from a position of strength. We do not know if that is realistic right now, but Ukraine's strikes against Russian logistics could be a sign of things to come. Right now, the surest way for Russia to harm Ukraine is by continuing its long-range strikes, particularly as they keep expanding the production of Shahed-like drones. But this has long become a game which two can play, as Ukraine now relies less on foreign assistance in the matter of long-range strikes. Russia's oil industry, particularly its oil export ports and oil refineries, remains Ukraine's main target. This continued in May as well. As a result, according to Reuters, all major oil refineries in central Russia have either halted or scaled back their production in May. For instance, the Kurishi oil refinery in Leningrad Oblast, which has the capacity to process 20 million metric tons of oil per year, has completely halted operations following the May 5th strikes. Kyiv also conducted a massive drone strike on Moscow at Moscow Oblast on May 17th, striking industrial facilities like the Angstrom semiconductor plant, the Elma Technopark, and the Moscow oil refinery, along with several oil pumping stations. Exactly this kind of capacity was what made Putin nervous on the eve of the anniversary of the USSR's victory over Nazi Germany on May 9th. Remember, every year Russia holds military parades on Red Square to commemorate this day. Putin has been wary of Ukrainian drones disrupting the parade. He switched from threats to persuasion and back on the eve of the holiday to ensure the parade, however poor it may have looked, would proceed smoothly without interruption. On May 4th, Putin declared a ceasefire for May 8th and 9th, threatening Ukraine with devastating missile strikes on Kyiv if it refused. Zelensky responded by offering a ceasefire on May 5th and 6th instead. Of course, Putin ignored it and launched one of the most deadly strikes on Ukraine on May 6th, which killed at least 21 civilians. Up until the last moment, it seemed there would be no ceasefire. But just a day before the parade, Donald Trump brokered a 3-day ceasefire. Evidently, achieving a 3-day ceasefire is much easier than ending the war in 1 day. So Putin got a chance to stage his parade, which was poorly attended by foreign leaders and featured almost no military equipment. Meanwhile, Zelensky did not miss the chance to troll Putin, issuing an official authorization allowing Russians to hold a parade. But alas, the ceasefire did not really hold anywhere but the Red Square. In the end, it did not really matter. Even though the Ukrainians did not target Moscow on May 9th, the Russians struck Kyiv twice in a devastating fashion. On May 12th to 13th and May 24th, they attacked Kyiv, launching hundreds of drones and dozens of missiles. In the latter attack, they even used an Narration IRBM, only for the 3rd time in this war. The May 24th attack also damaged several government buildings in Kyiv. Russia has already threatened to continue strikes against decision-making centers in Kyiv and has tried to persuade foreign embassy staff to leave Kyiv in order to sow chaos in the capital and exaggerate Russia's power and aura of inevitability in Western capitals. Ukraine still relies on Western countries, particularly on the United States, for air defense, especially when it comes to countering ballistic missiles. Patriot air defense missiles are still their main weapon against this threat, and Kyiv has long complained about their shortage. On May 29th, Zelensky sent a letter to Trump, urging the United States to grant Ukraine a license to produce Patriot missiles. It is unlikely for Trump to agree to this request, particularly as the US has decreased its diplomatic activity regarding the war in Ukraine due to a lack of progress in negotiations. On the flip side for Ukraine, the United States approved the sale of precision-guided JDAM bombs worth $373 million, along with the sale of Hawk missiles. Other notable news about foreign military assistance to Ukraine includes Norway's pledge to provide an additional $300 million for the Pearl program and Sweden's €2.5 billion military aid package. It included the procurement of 20 Gripen EF fighter jets and the donation of 16 Gripen CD jets, along with $400 million for domestic drone production in Ukraine. Zelensky has stated that Ukraine expects to receive its first Gripens in the next 10 months. European countries have indeed helped Ukraine immensely, both in terms of military and financial assistance, since the drastic decrease in aid coming from Washington. They continue delivering supplies vital for Ukraine's defense. However, any calls for an even larger, stable annual assistance to Ukraine do not really find much support in any Western capitals. For instance, The Telegraph reported that Britain, France, Spain, Italy, and Canada have all refused NATO's plan to allocate 0.25% of their GDPs for military assistance to Ukraine. Meanwhile, the most notable diplomatic activity on the Russian side occurred during Putin's meeting with China's leader Xi Jinping on May 20th. Despite maintaining a good friendly tone and saying all the right things, and issuing a joint statement to strengthen bilateral cooperation and jointly calling for a multipolar world order, Putin did not achieve the main objective of this trip, an agreement on the construction of the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline. So, May 2026 did not bring any decisive changes to the war in Ukraine. However, it is clear that the dynamics of the war are not exactly in favor of Russia at the moment, like it was merely 6 months ago. The Ukrainian army is preventing the Russian army from achieving anything notable, which is also struggling with a manpower shortage to some extent, especially if we compare with the situation in 2025. A lot may change if Ukraine can take advantage of current Russian problems, especially as it intensifies its campaign against Russian logistics in Ukraine. And not just by resisting Russia's territorial conquest, but by actually liberating strategic territories before Russia can solve its manpower, logistics, and drone disadvantage problems. Let's conclude this video by looking at visually confirmed equipment losses by both sides as of May 31st, reported by the Oryx blog. Russia has lost at least 4,394 tanks, 10,791 vehicles, 320 command posts and communication stations, 2,352 artillery systems and vehicles, 185 aircraft and 177 helicopters. Ukraine has lost at least 1,424 tanks, 6,568 vehicles, 91 command posts and communication stations, 1,304 artillery systems and vehicles, 116 aircraft and 56 helicopters. Further updates on the Russian invasion of Ukraine are on the way. If you don't want to miss them, make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see them. Please consider liking, subscribing, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our patrons and YouTube members can watch more than 200 exclusive videos. Join their ranks via the link in the description or by pressing the join button under the video. To watch these weekly videos, learn about our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our private Discord, and much more. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.